engage. This is Arc Analysis.
This is Arc Analysis.
This
is Arc
Arc
Analysis.
Analysis. Arc Analysis.
Follow up, because we're returning back to an old property.
We are. This is Arc Analysis number 59. The Kill Lock Volume 2, The Artisan Wraith. For so long, I was trying to write that. I couldn't remember what this was. If it was the Artisan Wraith or the Artisan's Wrath or Artisan. I was like, wait, what is it?
Which would have made more sense if you called it the Artisan's Wrath, because it's kind of.
I like it better, but
happened?
It's about the artisan. Well, it's hard to talk about because you don't really want to spoil the first.
Shouldn't it be the Artisan and the Wraith?
So that's a good point, because the title itself is a spoiler.
Yes.
if you know what about the first one, then it's like.
And if you're a fan of our podcast, you've heard how much we've raved about the Kill Lock. It was a near perfect, if not perfect, comic that we reviewed by both writer and artist Livio
Ramondelli, published by IDW. Sorry, I didn't say this at the beginning.
It's all good. We're still in
this. This is a brand new one too. This is coming out in 2022. So the first one was this is our 59th Arc Analysis, and that one's still top 5 for me.
Yeah, it's near flawless. And what he managed to do with the art styling, and because I specifically remember talking about the whole story is just about robots. Yeah. And in most comics and most like TV properties or most movies, you kind of see the cold slab, emotionless data finding ones and zeros of robots. But what Livio managed to do in Kill Lock is he gave all of these robots like emotions and like feelings and like moods. And I'm not talking about like visually by like changing the face. You could kind of feel in the way that they interacted with each other, the tone. It was way more sharp, like dark sensibility, like dark comedy. It had all of this life built into basically a death sentence. So I remember you and I just going off, just like, how do you do this? How do you think of this? And then how do you manage to make me care about all of these inanimate objects? Because that's all they are, right?
And it came out of nowhere too. Like it was like I was one of those random ones. It was actually our 16th Arc Analysis.
Jeez.
So now we're on 59. So it's been a long time. May 2021 was when we did this. So yeah, it came out of nowhere, and it surprised us. And I know Livio has done a lot of work with like Transformers and stuff. I want to go and read those too. That'd be kind of cool because his art. I love the art, and I love the way he writes. But it's one of those situations where some things don't need a sequel, and there are much worse examples of that. I love Boondock Saints, right? But like things that don't need a sequel.
Correct.
I don't think this sequel is bad. I know you may not agree with that, but it's not needed. It's not needed. Well, it's not needed. It's the thing. It's not needed, and it's longer than the first, and there's a lot more.
It's dense.
Yeah, it's very dense. The first one was cool because it's about these 4 robots, like you said, that are all locked together with the kill lock mark. So if one of them dies, they all die.
Yeah, amazing.
They're trying to remove it.
Plot device. Yes.
Yeah, and this one has almost nothing to do with the kill lock.
It almost has nothing to do with the 4 original characters that we fell in love with.
One of them is just pushed aside, like completely. He does nothing. And then there's 2 of them are kind of important, but he doesn't say anything. And then like the other one's just he's kind of the motivation, right? It's almost the kids. The kid's almost the most important part, but I don't know. This is the Artisan's book, and then they bring in the new
payoff. But the payoff for that is just unearned.
You don't like the ending?
What do you?
Weird. No, that's what I'm asking. Gosh, I was like, oh, okay. So they're gonna keep going
of a book I already didn't like, and I'm pretty sure Livio said in I think one of the first books that he was happy to and just the letters that the writer gets to give to the audience. He was happy to come back to this world because there's more stories to tell. That's fair, but this is a book that definitely needed an editor to talk about. Like, hey, if you're trying to capitalize on what everyone loved from the first one, maybe you need to play up these 4 kind of characters that were beloved, or just like the most interesting, and then kind of expand based on that. Because there's a certain, again, like how much are we giving away from this book is the real question between you and I.
Yeah, I don't like. Yeah, so it's okay. So we established that we'll try not to spoil anything, but there could be some major spoilers in how we talk. It just might slip out because it's very difficult to talk about this one without referencing the first.
And the first one we made sure not to spoil as much as possible.
First one was amazing.
It's such a good read.
And this one, I actually think does a good job of continuing the story. It's. I know I'm going to sound like a contradiction here because it does. Look at. I will say right from jump. I already said it. This book does not need to exist. Okay, it's not necessarily, but there are less interesting ways of continuing the story. Like I didn't see that whole motivation from the artisan coming. Because if you've read the first one, you know there's different classes of robots.
Sure.
The artisans are the thinkers. The Wraiths are like these warmongering race of robots that really don't do much. They just
conquer
planets.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, they're like, we're taking over.
So we don't see them much in the first one. In this one, it's all about them, and we see their entire species. I don't know what to call them. Because they're not a race, they're not a species, they're a class. We see their whole their entire species of robot is in this, and they play a major part in it. And I didn't like, is the artisan a bad guy?
I think he's supposed to be.
He's supposed to be, right?
But I don't like his arc in this. Well, I don't like his motivation.
Okay.
I understand certain moves that he takes, but I feel like this book was completely out of order. So I wish we had more time in the space that we get in order to deal with the first 4 characters. Like, when they go.
Yeah.
I love that. That was amazing.
That's the best part. Yeah.
That could have been 2 chapters worth of just like, how do we figure this out now? We're still sort of connected. We're still not, but something needs to change. And then bring me back into the world, because I don't really like the new protagonists. I don't like the 2 leads.
The Resolve, there's the Resolve and the Lurk. They're like bounty hunters, right? So they throw in a lot of different classes in this, and like the Resolve.
But they shoehorn a love relationship between those 2.
Yeah.
Yes and no, right? As much as the robots can, but like that shoehorn in, and then they meet. Who's that one chick that grants all the wishes?
Yeah, she was in the first one.
Yeah, I remember. I like seeing her. I just didn't like her role so early on. Like, I like how she's in the first one. She's kind of like the last resort. Like, they have to find her.
Yeah.
And I would say the same thing for the Wraiths. I didn't need as much exposition about like who these guys are. I kind of like them being mythical beasts that kind of show up and fuck shit up, and we don't know how to deal with them.
Like, how the artisan's like, he's so in this book, he's like baiting them.
Yeah.
I think it would have been better if they just never showed. But then but the Zenith, like the guy who's in charge, is kind of like a lunatic. So it like, I understand that whole, like, he's basically, if he wasn't in the position he was in for this book, the Wraiths would never have shown up. They'd have been like, I don't fucking care. Like, go away. Like, leave us alone, right?
I guess, but he's creating this world, so he could have easily made cheat codes. He could have easily made the parts that we love the most, the twist at the end.
Yeah.
We could have never known that until be like, oh crap. Like that, and that's why I kind of like the artisan from the first book, because he was always an antagonist and he was holding his cards close to his chest, but he wasn't intending to learn anything. And then the one thing that he did kind of showed he was the smartest or the craftiest. And I was like, that's near perfect, right? Like,
that was such a good way to end it, dude.
Yes.
Just leave it like that.
So to put us back in the world where his choices, you now see the consequences of, but like he's not really as pushing towards his choices. Like, he's kind of like he's took his foot off the gas, and I was like, well, why even do that? Like, I would rather him be like a menace if he's going to be a menace. Like, you made your choice for a reason because you wanted something specific. It happened, and then you wanted to be benevolent. And it's like that doesn't compute to the character that you initially set up for me in the first one.
Yeah, he like builds this whole city, and then he's like their leader, and then all of a sudden he's like, we're gonna take everything, and I was like, oh, all right. So I didn't see that coming. So the way he tried to, like I said, bait the Wraiths and basically propose a deal to them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really see that coming. And then, but then there's that whole like the beast, like what was it? The like that was kind of like
with the symbol and like that guy shows up and like
what is the and he's not even showing up. He's just there. They talk about him like he's a mythical creature, but now basically like the guys he's had to get just released him, but we don't see him, but he's enough to drive the Wraith crazy, and then you get to see all their font is really annoying to read.
Yes.
And
like, good call.
I was like,
it was charming in the first book because the Wraith
was very seldom, yeah.
Yes, and spoke limitedly, and you could tell he's different because the things he was saying were okay. This bubble, but when a whole bunch of them get together, and they all think they're important, but like you have to read this old English like font, and it's like I don't care about anything you guys are saying. That was a great pull because that pulled me out of the book. I was like, I already don't care about the one I'm supposed to care about, and then he introduced like 7.
Yeah.
And then there's like a higher version of one. So, okay. So here's my question to you. As succinctly as you could summarize the first book, the first Killock, can you do the same for this one?
No. Because there's too many moving parts. There's too many things going on.
Thank you. There's too many threads going on. There's too many storylines. They don't really wrap up together. And then the ending is just for who? Who is that ending for?
They did the whole, it's like a
flash forward.
Yeah, which is like there's nothing on the first book. The first book was like that's how you end a book. This one was kind of like, yeah, well, you didn't really.
I got tired and I made these new rules because apparently
it's like the Joker. It's like the Joker card at the end of Dark Knight, like or at the end of Batman Begins. Like, yeah, we don't really need this. I'll be honest with you. It's fine.
But that was for, is that the comparison? Because that's fan service and preparing for what's coming next. This one doesn't really prepare for what's coming next. And then I had way more questions. So robots can like age and like grow.
Yeah, they can. In this universe, they're basically just placeholders for biological beings. But that's the whole point. That's the whole, not the point. That's a big part of Livio's charm, though, is that he makes these machines, feel alive, like humans. They have are humans, but like flesh and blood, and they have like feelings and they have emotions and they fall in love and they die sometimes.
Sure,
you're right. They have this, so that's kind of an interesting. That it was kind of silly. Like the robots grow up and age up. That's kind of silly, but
and he's like,
but it's like I don't know if you let,
I don't want to ruin it, but I kind of let
yourself get wrapped up within that universe. It's like, okay, fine, this happened. Like for me, it's kind of like, all right, because I love the first one so much, and like I understand that these robots, you can't really fall in love and stuff. Okay, I'll just let myself believe that can happen, right?
I didn't mind the love thing. It's just these are the first 2 protagonists that you're giving me since the 4 that I left with, and this
the 4 are way more interesting.
Yeah. And it was a different family dynamic. It was like a parental love sort of thing. Sure, you can shoehorn in like I love this chick and I love this dude, but these are the people that are chasing down this one Wraith for a specific reason. So like that for me like didn't match up, especially meeting them first, right? Like we don't get to go back to the world we left. We go back to the world that exists, and then we're playing catch up. And the catch up is like, well, I've missed all of this. Like I missed the Wraith's arc because he's like a nice guy now. I missed all the backstory between our friends. I've missed like the humor's gone, like the dark sensibility.
That's funny, yeah.
There's a couple laughs in there. Like the whole legs thing kind of made me laugh.
That was really funny. Or like when he's just like, is there a line out there waiting to shit on me? Like that was. It's always the Artisan though, right? He was the soul of the first book.
Yes, but then he doesn't have the same bite in this one.
No, because he's there and then he's not.
And then he gets his comeuppance, and then like the final issue has all these like external and what's the word? Existential questions about like what it means to be part of something or to leave it, and like they leave it like he tries to leave it on another cliffhanger, but you can't come close to the cliffhanger you left on the first one. It just ends up making me mad because the characters I wanted to follow for 7 issues, I didn't get to.
Yeah. Well, and the first book really wasn't even. I wouldn't really consider it a cliffhanger. It was more like a I'll let you wonder. You know, like it's kind of it's open ended. There's a difference between open ended and cliffhangers, right? It's like this is open ended. You can kind of figure out or think about what happens next. I thought that was kind of cool. It's like, is the Wraith, is he going to do? Is he going to be like good about this, or is he going to be bad? Like he got what he wanted. Like that's, and nobody saw that coming, right? But in this one, it's like this is coming next. It's like, okay. Okay, I don't really care anymore now, though.
Yeah, it's like we got to battle Wraiths, and like I didn't even care about the battle in this. Like this book, because the first book was such like a heartfelt, like an emotional journey. The violence kind of, I wasn't really looking for it. Like I didn't care about the fights as much. Like I was really intent to find out about these characters and how they've escalated and how much time it's been. So there were touch tones of that. But when it came to like, okay, now the Wraiths have to battle, I was like, I don't care anymore. Like, we have to use the cloak. And I was like, the cloaking device. I was like, I don't care, right? Like, what I cared about, I didn't get. And everything else that you put in here, I don't know if it's self-serving or like you're just trying to pad out the rest of the universe, right? For me, it's the original Star Wars compared to like the George Lucas, the Phantom Menace, those ones where you go back to the universe, but like now you just hear your own voice because everyone's like, the first three were great, so you can do no wrong. And it's basically just these guys walking around on a green screen talking, giving exposition. It's like, where's the heart? Like, I don't care about the exposition. I kind of want to know about these four characters.
This is, in my opinion, this is definitely a tale of two stories. Like I'm thinking while you're talking, I was like, but I enjoyed this, but then I'm kind of like, well, I think what happens is I'm a little biased because the first book I love, and this one actually started out interesting. That the first, I guess 3 issues, maybe 4 issues,
like the chase to find out.
There's the one storyline, right? What's the Artisan up to? What is he up to? And then you kind of figure out what he's up to, and then once you figure that out, then the second story starts. It's like, okay, here's what I want to do. Now you know. And now we're going to do it. And then that second part, that now we're doing it, is when like the beast thing comes in and like everybody's gone. And now I'm like, and there's so many Wraiths and they never shut up. And it's like, okay, wait a second.
One's bigger than the other one. And the next one's bigger than that one.
So it kind of goes like this. It kind of goes up, up, up. And then it goes, da, 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 da. And it's like, did I like that? I was like, well, I originally did. I don't know.
You're giving more credit to the up, up, and up. I feel like it went up,
I think so,
up, and then like nosedive, because those back 3, was it back 3, back 7, or back 4? The last few issues, it's a chore to get through. One, for the amazing call that you made about just the font of these Wraiths that like
it's really annoying.
Literally make it hard for you to follow. But the fact that we have to follow a story that I don't care as much about and is getting shoehorned into, like, essentially we're at this one planet and they're like, we got to talk about these other guys coming into this planet to attack this planet. I'm like, why? Like, none of this was necessary. When we could have kept doing the dynamics between the different classes of robots and how that war is escalated. Because I feel like they swept over that too. At a certain point, you find out like a whole class gets basically genocide or like extinct. And we're like, what's going on here? And they're like, don't worry about it. Move to the next thing. It's like, what?
Or when like characters that we knew from the first one, just like the worker class.
Yeah.
he was kind of like he was the voice of reason in the first book. Like,
well, he was the voice. He was just like,
he was like a good dude,
what's going on. Yeah.
Unless you got him around booze, and then he was kind of like, like he was like that guy who was like your uncle, like, come on, you don't have to have. And this one, he's like, well, I'm over that now, so.
But I'm not over this, and I got no legs. And it sounds like they didn't have anything to do with it. They brought in so many new characters that they didn't know what to do with their original characters, because that proves what happens to the boy at the end. Like, they really didn't know what to do with him either.
No.
And it was cute how they had that whole little thing about like, go show me how fast you can run, right? Like, that was such a parent thing. It was like, okay, go run, we're watching.
That was that was cute.
So they could have real conversations. But I wanted to be in that location so much more. Or like find out like that's not the cliffhanger, but that's the twist at the end. It's like, maybe there's internal Wraith is having so much problems because he can't make heads or tails. Because there's a little line about like, oh, little things are rubbing off on you, right? Like he wants to wear a cape now and stuff like that.
That's right.
I feel like that could have been explored way more than this war that like nobody cares about, and these bounties that like I don't care about them. But they like I wouldn't. had them as my first introduction back into this world.
So out of the new characters too, I didn't really mind the Resolve class. I thought she was cool because the way she had escaped the kill lock herself in her own way. That was dope. And then she rebuilt herself. But the one she's with, the Lurk, I was I couldn't wait to get rid of that guy. He's like this senile, old withered person. The more he's just losing his memory, and it's okay. Well.
Yes, but I did love the one page or panel where they showed who he was as a boy and then how he aged, and just his mind his mind melting. He's trying to write and it turns even more feeble. And I was okay, cool, but this is past the point of me enjoying the book, which is a shame because I really wanted to enjoy this book.
Right, but I'm saying that you're right. That whole paneling was really, really cool, but he was less interesting than the core 4.
Yes.
Right. So I'm I don't.
Well, and that's my biggest takeaway. We didn't get as much of core 4 as we needed, and when they finally wanted to lean on that, it was it's too late. You've introduced all these other characters, and I need to be following what's happening with this, and I'm not, and I don't care. And
here's this font that I want you to read a lot of. It's really fancy,
and it's just a dick measuring competition. I'm strong because I can do this. And well, this guy's a little more strong, and it's I don't care about any of you guys.
And then those other 2 Wraiths that are just talking about how much the one Wraith is losing his mind. it's pages of it's man, okay, let's get it going. I'm so sick of reading this font.
It's amazing. That first book feels like he compiled his one best idea and was if this is all I get, this is amazing. And this one feels if I was ever to go back to the universe, this is the one story I wanted to tell, but no one told him this isn't the story that we want to hear yet.
I think we actually said that at the time too. It was someone was okay, here's this, you get one chance to make a book.
Right.
And he's all right, I'm going to do this idea I just want to do. And he just nails it. And now this one's kind of they come back hey, you remember that story you nailed?
Yeah, do it again. He's yes, I'd love to go back, but didn't the charm was right there, and that's the thing. He's so close to it. Just for whatever reason, he wants to talk about all these ancillary things. I don't know if
it's almost world building. He's trying. Sorry to cut you off. He's just trying to set up more things, because the beast, the kids. Okay, well.
But you already set up 4 classes.
Yeah.
So if it was a book that was we just went on to different classes and the Wraith is going around and visiting different homes and seeing how if he could fit in or can't fit it. I like when the Wraith is the outlier and the last of his kind.
Mm-hmm.
When you introduce a whole army of them, it's so you're what are you good for? You're not really good for anything. And the fact that we have to follow you now to whatever MacGuffin that you're all going to, because there's the big planetary war or something happening or something unfolding. I don't care anymore. But when he was damned and doomed to be connected to these 3 everyday bots. And they're man, you got to roll with us? Yes. He was misunderstood, kept to himself, but inevitably found a family with these misfits, right?
Yep.
Play that up, I would think. But no. This book is kind of devoid of charm, except for those brief moments where you're this is what I love about the first book.
Yeah. So more time with the Artisan would have been
Yep.
Just chef's kiss.
And then the Artisan gets his comeuppance, kind of, and then it doesn't really pay off. Anyway, I want to talk more about it, but it's just I get into complete spoiled territory and me just pissed off.
Yeah, we've already spoiled some things, but people, if you never read either book, you wouldn't even notice it. It's just the first one, absolutely read. Anyways,
yes, I will re-recommend the first book. The first book gets a boom.
Oh yeah. First was a top 5. And we should do when we get to 100 of these or something. We should do what's our top 5 of all of our our arc analysis. That'd be dope.
Yeah. Why wait? We'll do it at 69. Our favorite number of the, or maybe a better number. Maybe 100. Maybe 100 works. By 100, we should have a top 10, right? By now, we should have a top 5. Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Anyways, we rate these on a good or bad basis. Boom for good, bah for bad. Or whoosh for what did I just read? We haven't done whoosh in a while. But I kind of think I'm going to whoosh this. I'm going to whoosh this because the first half I like and the back end I really don't. But I really like Livio's work. And I'm this book isn't bad. It's just, I don't know.
It's not good though.
Yeah.
So he gets an out. But
yes.
based on how he finishes the book compared to how he starts the book, there's no continuity. Like those are two different writers that wrote the beginning and the end. So that's a whoosh. Stories. I think there's like 3 stories in here though, and then the story that I really wanted. I didn't listen. This is my one spoiler. I'm gonna give to the book. I really wanted Herman's head. You gave me Herman's head. Give me more Herman's head. Yeah. If that makes sense to you, great. If it doesn't,
if you ever want to make a submission for Arc Analysis, you tweet us at comic_patrol on Twitter. Or
Stat Boy's back up there. Stat Boy's
Patrol
stuff again.
comicpatrolpod@gmail.com. You can send in, hey guys, why don't you do this? Maybe we will, maybe we won't.
Yeah, someone talk about if you like Kill Lock 2, because if you did, I have some real questions about what your top 5 comic books are.
Top 5.